Do you have, when you play with familiars, which already came out wrong, do you have, like, because you have characters that you like to go back to again and again, Oscar and probably some kind of gnome. Do you have familiars that you go back to? Like a weasel?
Balfram Slartibartfast is a common gnome name. He's my typical go-to when I want to play a Mystic Thirst type character.
Okay, and he has a familiar?
Oh, yeah, he's got a floating pseudo-dragon named Puck.
So you either have a paragraph for a name or you have one syllable.
Yeah.
It seems to be your
pattern.
No,
I like to find my humor in my character names.
No.
Oh, hey, Adam. So, like I said, so Puck is a pseudo-dragon. You know, they're supposed to be... I think he was a fairy dragon because they're supposed to be all beautiful and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I found this, like, absolutely gnarly picture of this big, fat, bloated, like, dripping fairy dragon.
I like that.
So, Slartibartfast had this big, disgusting thing called Puck. And anytime I would be called...
Do you do familiars?
Because
I've never known you have a familiar.
No, because I never get to be a player.
You never get to play.
I'm always a DM.
The monsters are your familiars.
Yeah,
the dragon.
Yes, so I don't spend all of my time coming up with names that are from Hitchhiker's Guide. Slartibartfast?
Slartibartfast from Hitchhiker's Guide, and Puck is because he's small and round, so I was all like, haha, Alpha Flight.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So, you're stealing from other places. Let's talk about places. That's a segue. Let's talk about...
nicely done.
Let's talk about environments. We talked about exploration before, but let's actually talk about the settings that we are... that we're actually going to play in. So, but first, can we cut to the music?
That fat bass line.
Welcome to It's a Mimic with your DMs, Adam, Dan, and Terry.
Okay, so we're back. We're talking about environments. One of the things that I want to talk about before anything else, before we get into the setting that you're in, the room that you're in, I want to talk about climate and weather. It is so important. It is definitive for some campaigns to be done in the snow or in the desert or in the Underdark or wherever it is. I mean, Dark Sun alone, Spelljammer, these are such massive environmental issues that are hitting absolutely everybody. So let's talk about that for a little bit. What do you guys add when you are DMing to, what? Dan's giving me a smile already.
Dan's ready to go.
I am ready to go, but don't we gotta roll initiative to do this first?
Yep, but I'm not using your crap dice that betrayed me last time. I'm using my own shiny new dice.
That's beautiful. So I'll use the ginger dice?
Okay, I'll use a spearmint rhino. Named after my favorite
type of
gum. What were you going with?
Type of gum? Spearmint?
No.
Rhino gum? All right, and roll initiative. Well, I guess I'm going first. So I got a 16.
You are terrible.
I got 6. Dice. I'm never playing this game again. I'm sick of it.
Okay, so the very first thing that I want to talk about, of course, is the location in the world that you're in. The difference between a desert or if you're inside a volcano. You guys notice that you are inside a lot of volcanoes in D&D? Like, there are just a lot of volcanoes.
Comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Everything's a fault.
You're like we got to play with geysers a little bit before because I wanted to mix it up. But originally, that idea was, and there's lava pouring up with.
That would have been a far more intense encounter than hot steam.
That's true. Hot steam, by the way, is going to be my nickname from now on.
Wow. But I guess geysers not quite as lethal because lava does it's like 18d10 or something ridiculous.
Oh yeah,
you get stuck with lava. So
yeah, but when you are actually playing different environments and whatnot, when you're prepping it as a DM versus when you're playing it as a character, what are your concerns? What's the very first thing that pops into your head when I'm like, hey, you know what? We're going out into the desert. What are you guys thinking about?
What am I thinking about? I'm answering right now.
Yeah.
I would say an aspect which is often overlooked or I think played unfairly, which is the whole survival aspect of it.
Yeah,
we're talking heat and thirst. Remember, some races, some creatures are going to deal with this better than others. I think that is either A, completely overlooked, because I think for newer DMs or for DMs, here's another thing I want to address. DMs that have played for so long that they've seen it so many times that they're no longer interested in it.
No idea what you're talking about.
It gets overlooked. Yeah. Dan's a perfect example. Dan's played for 25 years.
I can probably count on one hand the amount of times where weather has mattered.
Okay, exactly, right? But for someone where, like me, I often talk to you guys about how much exploration is important to me. If we were going into a desert and Dan was like, all right, let's just hurry up and get there. You walk for 5 days, you don't see anything. I'm going, in a desert? Have you never seen Tremors, man? Like, so I think for me that the whole environmental survival aspect with heat and thirst is often overlooked. But this is the point I want to make about this. This is the game. It's not. It is 10% is your plot hook, your end goal that you're trying to get through the desert, to get to the mountain, to put the ring in the lava. Spoiler alert. But for me, the game is the journey getting there.
Yeah, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're telling a collaborative story together. It's the journey that matters, right? It's not the end.
But you guys don't just do like the snap cut visit, tourism New Zealand, walk through the mountains.
No. When I have a month to prep a campaign, I sit there and I get really in my head about how far can you see in these thick jungle mists when you're on these massive rivers. And one of the problems with our pirate campaign is you guys keep saying, well, there's no pirates in it. I'm like, the pirates are everywhere. You just can't see them because they're 30 feet beyond the edge of the hull.
So if they're 35 feet and we can see 30 feet, that's it. Like, they don't exist to us.
Yeah. So that's a major factor that I wanted to cut down on the fact that some people, and this is just me, some people can see in the dark and some people can't. So I'm like, well, I'm not just going to make it darkness. I'm going to give you a physical barrier. And so mist became a major factor in the current campaign that we're in, right?
That also for me, because I know I was just touching on survival there, and we'll get to it probably a little bit later on, but people will talk about puzzles and problems they have with puzzles. The environment is the puzzle. You have five people trying to get through a desert. There's your puzzle.
There's this wonderful little ability at the very bottom of the list called survival.
Exactly.
And even rangers and druids, I find, sit there and look at it in session 0 and they go, oh, that's important. And then by session 3, they've
rolled up maybe once.
Yeah.
Maybe
exactly.
once,
Exactly.
See, for me, like I said, like I've been playing this game for so long that weather to me has never been the thing that stuck out unless it needed to. Like, can you guys imagine walking up to Strahd's Castle? Strahd's Castle?
Strahd's Castle.
I loved your accent.
Strahd's
Perfect,
Castle.
Darling.
Yeah.
Marvelous. Spectacular. Go on.
You're slowly make us all. You're going to slowly make us more, motherlandy.
Slowly.
Yeah.
You guys are actually making me more Canadian by the day. But.
You're welcome. Also, sorry. Get it? Because Canadian?
We get it.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
Anyway.
Yeah. Continue.
Anyways, can you imagine walking up to Strahd's Castle and it's a big, bright, sunny day and birds are chirping?
Yeah, like that's the big thing about the Curse of Strahd campaign. Well, hold on a sec. Tell me about Chult. You actually got to play Tomb of Annihilation, and there's a whole part at the beginning of it about survival.
Yeah.
Right? So what does that look like? I haven't played it. Tell me about it.
For one, I don't think I've ever heard of a single group doing Tomb of Annihilation that follows the rules as they're written inside of the book for exploring the island of Chult and everything else, because they're so convoluted and weird. But when it specifically comes to the environment and surviving in it, there's certain things you have to prepare for. So you're walking through the Port Nyanzaru looking for really 3 things. You're looking for food that's going to last you a couple weeks because you're out in the middle of the jungle for several weeks and you know this going into it. You're looking for a way to carry and maintain water. So you could build you could buy tents that funnel water into things that you could keep with you for a certain amount of time. And you're tracking this on your character sheet day by day. The other thing you're looking for, and this is the thing I love about bringing in weather, is insect repellent. Because you're walking through the middle of a, prehistoric era jungle. There's going to be mosquitoes that are going to try to kill you. And so you
just make sure you're less sweaty than the barbarian. You'll be fine.
You usually are. Barbarians by nature are sweaty.
I hear gin is a natural mosquito repellent, but I don't know if that's true.
Like a genie or like the clear alcohol?
Oh, sorry. I meant like the clear alcohol. You gotta be clear. Yeah, okay. But also, if you happen to have a genie with you, they will probably help.
Yeah. All right, but hold on, because you make a really good point about all this stuff. And insect repellent's great.
Yeah.
But everything that you said was consumable.
Yeah.
So are you tracking time as a DM? Do you guys deal with calendars? And if so, how do you do it?
Right.
So typically I don't. I just kind of hand wave days. Because the date itself in my camp, like I said, I'm the lazy DM. So I'm not going to add these little things that are going to be more. I just randomly assume, it's been enough time for something major to happen. Sure. Like, there's no real rhyme or reason to me maintaining a calendar.
I feel like in Dan's campaign, it's always 20 degrees, clear skies, and around about 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Unless it's not, and then you pay attention.
Yeah, or it's midnight, and we're on, let's say Watch 2.
Well, yeah. But the thing is, like, in my campaign, if it starts to rain, there's a reason. I've got a thing. Nothing I do is subtle, I guess. So like
I said nothing.
Adam?
I said nothing.
Yeah, your face spoke thousands of words. No, if it's raining, there's a reason. If it's a thunderstorm, there's a reason. If it's misty out, there's a reason, right? I don't just go, yeah, it's fall, so it's chilly, I guess, right?
Now I know you have your reasons for that.
Yeah, laziness.
I'm gonna
unadulterated
it
laziness.
is laziness, but you know the game so well that you're very good at making it fun. But my rebuttal to that is, as a player, this is my reaction. If it's been 2:00 in the afternoon, overcast 20 degrees for the past 3 days, and you go, it suddenly starts to rain, I go, can I roll a perception check?
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
If it had been raining for 3 days.
But the thing is, I'm okay with that. Like if I am mentioning something and a player reacts to it, that's a win in my book. That's them paying attention. That's them being engaged.
Now, you see, I'm the exact opposite, because not only did I make my own calendar that has 595 days and 6 massive seasons, which is just, I know, yes, it's overkill. Dan.
You are a psychopath.
Adam sees in Matrix Code.
so not only do I do that, but
I'm going to throw my box of dice on the ground and get you to count them in less than a second.
Yeah, but I'll just add up all the values too. So.
And also there's 3 of them in there, because there's 3 of us.
But the fact is that I take the calendar, and not only do I track the days, but when we do random encounters, I track the hours too.
Yeah.
Right? I have you guys roll. It's not just roll a d20 to see what happens, or I roll behind the screen, right, to come up with which one of my monsters is there. I want you to roll, what is it? I think it's a d8 to determine how many days go by. Then there's 4 d8. And I've got a random table to find out what time of day, how many hours have gone by, and then we roll to see if it's...
Well, you've built that... excuse me. You've built that system in order to engage your players in that decision as well, because there's enough things that we have to roll around the table where if it's my turn, I'll get to roll the d12, and then another player will get to roll the 2d4, and then another player will roll the 3d8, and then one player will throw a single d6 on the ground.
But it's also to keep it interesting for me as the DM, because I don't know what you guys are going to hit. Because if you guys hit drow at night, that's a lot scarier than drow at 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
And so if it's suddenly 2 in the afternoon, and I'm sitting going, okay, so it's about 2 o'clock now. We've rolled on the table. I know what's coming. You guys don't.
Yeah.
Right. But you've all rolled. And I'm like, place yourselves in your marching order on this randomized map that I've thrown down and whatnot. But what are you guys doing? Hold on, what are you guys doing? And then I sit there, and while I'm asking you all these questions, you're setting it up. I'm going, why the fudge are drow out at 2 in the afternoon? What could possibly be important? So now this gives me a second to come up with an interesting motivation, and we've gone radically off the rails,
Right?
Because of random encounters, because of the time of day and the fact that it's shifted on us.
Yeah. I have questions about that, but I know you've been itching to say something.
Well, I'm just saying, to also stay on the side of weather and environment, you have also, for those 599 days, I have weather every single tracked, day has a weather pattern tracked, and with the campaign homebrew world that you have, those matter. So you are constantly reminding us as the players to, hey guys, pay attention to the calendar I've given you, because if we get too far along here, you're in the storm season, and this is a river campaign, so good luck.
That's great for it, though, because, and this is something which gets missed a lot, though, the weather is crucial for it. So we have our calendar in our game, and we're literally deciding are we going to go after the MacGuffin in the mountain, whatever we're doing, tomorrow? Nope, because there's a snowstorm tomorrow, and that will change everything.
You guys ended up fighting a white dragon in the blizzard. This is before, Dan, you joined. They fought a white dragon in a blizzard, but they went hunting it. And they had to wait they were tasked with killing all of these different dragons. Yeah. And they said, well, we know it comes in the winter season, in the cold season. So they waited for it, and then they waited to see it on the horizon. They're like, all right, here we go. Out into the farmlands, let's pull this thing down. We'll lure it into a barn. And we had a whole encounter about it. But you guys had to wait for that.
But it made the game so much more interesting, because that was another dynamic. The weather was the puzzle, which is what I was saying before. How do we deal with this white dragon in a snowstorm in farmlands? We had to change our strategy. And realistically, if it was a clear day, why the hell would I stand in a barn when a dragon is coming towards me? I would not. I would do somewhere else. But that's the only way that our team could control the situation.
As long as you're standing near the back of the line of people, you're fine.
Yeah, we're fine. Yeah. No, my character was not. As is tradition, I was at the front. But my question that I wanted to ask you before, because you were talking about rolling random tables, I've previously done it differently, in which I will roll before the game. Yeah. Because your comment that you just said there, Adam, you were saying, I have to figure out on the fly, or using my experience and my knowledge, why are drow out at 2:00 in the morning? What are they doing right now? Whereas I would previously roll it before the game, knowing that it would happen at this day, this time, no matter what the party is doing. So it just kind of blends in with the story.
Right.
That's
okay.
far too much paperwork.
So I'm not married.
Right.
So I have free time. So I make all of my random tables myself.
Fair one.
Yeah, and so when I'm like, hey, I'm going to throw drow, for example, down on here, and they're in a jungle, I need to know why they're in the jungle, what they're doing, and I have kind of a general idea, and maybe in the daytime they're doing this, and at nighttime they're doing that. Maybe if you guys are near the coast, then they've got some ship that they have got all the people on there enslaving, or depending on where you are, and I kind of plot that out when I decide to drop them in the random table.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you're going to hit that. So there are things that are happening, like you guys are in an area where there's a purple worm. You are level 13 right now. If that pops up, you're screwed. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You guys just walked through an area that had a Nightwalker in it. And I rolled to see if you would run into it. Because I gave you a big heads up that if this comes out, you run.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can't beat this thing. Here it is. Because that's another part of the environment. There are things out there bigger than you. If you look at that narrow mountain pass and say, you know what? We can't do that. We got to go around. You should be doing that for your ancient red dragon that lives in the mountain and you're level 4. You go, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, that realism needs to be there, really, because just because you're a low level doesn't mean the world is a low level around you. You don't level up at the same time.
And I'm a big proponent of the fact that the world moves on without you. There are high-level NPCs out in the world. Yeah. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, but they become part of the world and therefore part of the environment around you as well. The other thing too is that when I'm running a calendar, right, I know what the weather patterns are because of my homebrew. It's the same year after year after year. On this day of this month, you know it's going to be sunny. Yeah. On this day of this month, you know it's going to be snowy, right? And I go through it. So, and here's the other thing about environments, which I think a lot of people miss. And spoiler alert, what happens when that suddenly changes?
When the weather suddenly changes?
When the calendar no longer lines up. When the weather goes from, it should be bright and sunny, and now there's a hailstorm in July.
Oh, that's right. Very specific, because that's what you do. I wouldn't necessarily have the weather the same
no matter what. No, but the
point...
But
it's paying attention to even, like, weather patterns in the game. Like, even if you're a lazy DM like I am, and
if you're walking through Chult and there's a blizzard all of a sudden, what is this about?
Yeah, it's not hard to make that leap of logic.
So I just wanted to point out that the other good thing that you can use for environment, or you can use the environment for, is omens and portents.
Oh yeah.
And you can signal things to your players about what's coming and how bad things are going to be, because now all of a sudden the river is running red, right? Yeah.
And this is what I was trying to get to, like, walking up to Strahd's castle in the bright sun is going to be miserable. But walking up to Strahd's castle and it's raining and there's a thunderstorm and there's this dark gloom, even though it's the middle of the day, you know that there's something evil in this place by setting the tone with your weather. Right? And that's part of it, right? It doesn't even have to be like the river's now running red with blood and there are frogs hopping out of it. Like, you don't need to be that overall blatant about it. You could be a little, and I realized I said I wasn't all that subtle, and I would do the river red runs.
Yeah.
But, like, you could do far more subtle things as well and be like, it's getting darker earlier than you expect. And only tell your more nature-attuned party members that, right? Like, there's nothing saying that you can't just give information without a roll.
Yeah.
Right?
But honestly, if you have passive perception, why don't you have passive investigation? Like, how much are you, like, thinking about the world around you? Passive survival, like, you just...
We'll talk about that next session. We'll talk about that next episode. We'll talk about that next episode.
But just to wrap up on this before we roll dice again, you were talking about walking up to Strahd's castle. Now, the other environmental thing that a lot of people take for granted are you on a road? Because roads make a huge difference, not just for travel speed, but for visibility, for attack plans, for ambushes, for, like, there's a lot going on just by adding or taking away a road or a path. And suddenly you
even the quality of the road and or path.
Yeah, and now you need that ranger or that druid, and if you don't have them, then you are desperate to find a guide.
Yeah.
And now we're working in local NPCs because there are no roads. I mean, it all comes down to environment. That's the first step. We all talk about maps, but the maps are the key factor in telling you everything that you need to know about where this campaign is likely going to go.
Yeah. So I think that just before we wrap this part up, the big thing is that the environment can be so underused, but just creates a massive element to your game, whether it just be puzzles, survival. It is underused, and it shouldn't be.
No.
It's where I'm going.
Yeah, and if someone is rolling perception and they don't roll high enough to see the orcs that are peering through them, give them environmental things to focus on, right? There's so much in the world that we just zoom right past, and we shouldn't, right? There's so much more about that.
How cool would it be to hear your company name on this podcast? Pretty stinking cool. It's a Mimic is ready to take our show to the next level. We want to partner with other awesome businesses to share your brand with our listeners. Please email us at info@itsamimic.com for advertising information.
So, Plains and the Underdark. Let's talk about the other environments that exist out there beyond jungle and tundra and desert. So there are a million plains to go through and locations within the plains.
So
and
get comfortable because we're about to break them down.
Yeah, and everyone just like looked at the timestamp.
Yeah,
and they're like, okay, this isn't 6 hours long. We're not doing the plains today.
Yeah.
But here's really quickly what the plains are. All right. So there's the prime material plane, and that's where 99% of campaigns start.
Yep.
It is your Forgotten Realms, even your Eberron, anywhere that kind of follows the general basic physics and rules and whatnot. And then, and like you guys pipe up with this, have you been to the Echo? They call them the Echoes. There's the Shadowfell and the Feywild.
No, I tell you guys right now, I will know the least out of all three of us about the planes, and I'm probably just going to be firing legitimate questions at you for the next 20 minutes about them. I'm fascinated by them. I know the basics. I know the material plane, ethereal plane, astral plane, but I'm genuinely listening to you right now. So,
well, okay. So there's the Feywild and the Shadowfell, and Dan, you can pipe up with this.
Yeah.
But
I find the Feywild has, depending on your DM, it's going to have a different interpretation of what it does, and I'm fine with that.
Well, the Shadowfell is muted. That's the word that they keep using.
Yeah.
And it's this idea that there's depression, and it's sucking the joy out of you. Mm-hmm. And it is a dark reflection. They call it an echo, but it's a dark reflection of our world.
Yeah.
Where there are points in it that line up with points in our, or in the campaign world, right? Yeah. So in the prime material plane. And there are points that line up, but the distances may be different. Or there may be like a small farming village in the prime material plane that just isn't there in the Shadowfell. But then there's the Feywild, which is the other side of that, which is just infused with life.
Yeah.
And
if there's a shrub in the material plane, it is a 20-foot tall oak tree in the Feywild.
Yeah, or it's still a shrub, but it's bright purple and sings. Like it is so full of fey and magical horseshit.
So here's
really?
but it's important because these things need to align. But before we go really deep dive into this, do we want to roll initiative on this?
Well, hold on. Let me get through the planes,
okay,
and then I have a question for you. Okay. So this is going to be like a long explanation really quickly.
Sure.
So you mentioned the astral plane and the ethereal plane. The astral plane you don't actually visit; your mind does. There are ways to get there, but for the most part, it's your mind that travels. And if you die there, you come back to your body. The ethereal plane you traditionally visit. And they're called the transitive planes because you have to cross them to get to the inner planes, which are your four elements. Mm-hmm. Your fire plane, your earth plane, your air plane, your water plane.
Airplane.
Your airplane. So in these places, I always hated the idea of the plane of air because I'm not calling it an airplane now.
Yeah.
Of the plane of air because I'm like, so you're just falling forever? Like there's just air everywhere?
No, it's floating islands and stuff.
Man. In the airplane, you're just falling forever?
Well,
surely you can't be serious.
All right.
Well done. Well done.
You are going to derail me. So
pretty easy when you bring up
airplane. Let's go. The plane of air.
So anyway, with the plane of air. for example, there are floating islands and whatnot. It's not just air, just like in the Plane of Fire.
It's not just open flame at all times.
Right. There's like a desert, but it's parched, and there's drought and whatnot to it. But the further into it you go, the more it does become volcanoes and just seas of lava, and then just eternal fire.
Right.
And so the further you go, the more it becomes that plane and goes out into the elemental chaos.
How many ways in and out are there? Because you're talking about going in, like, deeper.
Well, you can use portals, you can use gates, you can bypass it altogether by having specific guidance.
In some games, there's a literal path that goes through all of them, and you get like a boatmaster like Sharon or the River Styx that goes through all of it.
Ooh. Well, okay,
but that's specifically like the abyss. Or
that's
whatever.
the lower planes.
Planes, yeah.
So when you get to the outer planes are essentially alignment. I guess based.
Yeah. So you'll have your lawful, you'll have your good, you'll have your...
But more specifically, you have your lawful good, and then you have your neutral good, but you also have a plane between that, which is both lawful good and neutral good. So there are 5 good, there are 6 neutral, and then there are 5 evil. So
are there dramatic differences between them?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and there's the River Styx that goes through all of the lower planes, which are the evil ones, and there's the River Oceanus, I believe, that goes through all the upper planes.
Okay, cool.
So there's kind of a parallel there. Where it starts and stops, nobody really knows, because it goes to either the deepest pit of the abyss or the highest peak on Mount Olympus.
And so, speaking simply, can I get on that river at any point, or do I have to start here and go through?
Well, if you end up, for example, teleporting, for lack of a better word, if you shift.
Plane shift?
Yeah, into, and this is one of them, the Happy Hunting Grounds.
Okay.
If you go into the Happy Hunting Grounds, then you can get on the river wherever you want, because it's one of the more neutrally based good planes of existence, and it will take you to others as well. But you don't have to start from one and go through absolutely everything.
Obvious question for the noobs out there. When you say river, do you mean a literal river?
Literal river. There are boats.
Boatmen,
However, the River Oceanus is calm and placid, like there are waterfalls and rapids, but it's generally calm and anyone can really navigate on them. And it heads to the sea where Mount Olympus and Celestia and all that are there. The bright shining oceans that are eternal. That's the other thing about the planes. Every plane is eternal, which doesn't make an ounce of sense because they have borders that they go up against, but they're also all eternal. So don't think too hard about it.
This is like quantum fantasy physics. I can't handle this.
Yeah,
it's a mystery. Move on.
However,
there's people out there pretending they do understand it, but we know you don't.
But the River Styx, however, if you end up in the waters of the River Styx, you lose memories, you lose your sense of self, and in a very short period of time, you just become a mindless husk. And actually navigating the River Styx is one of the most dangerous things ever. You need to find a Yugoloth, essentially, to help you through it. You need a fiendish guide, which is a crazy take on the regular myth of the River Styx. But even beyond the outer planes, there's the far realms, which is where the old gods are from.
Oh my goodness.
Right. And then beyond that is the plane of dreams, where there's nothing material and it's just chaos and idea. And so whatever you can think of can take place in these planes. And then the prime material plane itself has different versions of it depending on where you're going. You can go to Ravnica. You can go to...
think of this massive planescape and then shift dimensional travel into it as well.
Yeah.
Where, based on choice, there are infinite choices all the way through.
What I really want to do in the future sometime is an episode, or like a series of small episodes to hit each one of these things specifically to go through it. But it's madness going out to these things. And I wanted to ask you guys, first of all, I know your answer, Terry, but Dan, have you been to the plains, and how often does it come up in a campaign?
So in my current campaign that I'm DMing, it's going to be a big component of my campaign. I actually thoroughly enjoy planar travel. I think it keeps things interesting. There's only so much you can if you're playing a high magic campaign, you need to have planar travel in it because it's part and parcel with a high magic campaign.
Well, a lot of times, I mean, the general rule is that when you hit tier 3, you're supposed to jump over into the planes, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? And at that point, you're conversing with gods and you're conversing with archdevils if they're not flaying you alive. And you're conversing with, demon princes if they're not wearing your skin. Like, there's things like that are happening. And that's your latter half. That's your latter 2 tiers, especially tier 4, where you're going and making bargains with gods to defeat gods, right?
Yeah.
Or become gods yourself. So, like, I think there is a easy path to get there in every campaign, but I find the most satisfying and rewarding and typical campaigns happen between level 2 and 12.
So do you think that's why in 5th ed, see, we've only had one actual module, like a book that's been released, that is an adventure campaign that leads you from up to level 20. I mean, I don't think there's anything
that's
Dungeon of the Mad Mage, right? It's the most recent one that takes you up to level 20. But there's nothing like above level 14, I think, in any of the others.
I think that's the exact reason, is because you're going to play a 12-level campaign. That's going to take you about a year if you follow their leveling scheme.
Right, but that's also why we don't have anything about the planes. Like, there's some stuff out there. Curse of Strahd touches on it briefly. I mean, Barovia is a demi-plane, which is its own little pocket universe. It's a little pocket dimension that lives off of the Shadowfell. Right, so it's not actually in the Shadowfell; it's born from the Shadowfell.
And like, not all.
It's like
we
a
should make this clear.
conservatory.
We should make this clear. Not all demi-planes come from the Shadowfell. Just Barovia itself is part of the Shadowfell.
Yeah, there are dozens.
Demi-planes are just demi-planes. Like in Tomb of Annihilation, there is demi-plane travel as well.
Oh, is there?
Yes.
Spoiler alert.
If you come to a tunnel that turns around in a big circle.
Spoiler alert?
Dad,
What?
My
spoiler
God.
alert! Have you never been on the internet? They'll kill us for this.
Oh, they probably will.
All right, so but beyond all of the planes, so you've run into it before, right? And as a DM, you're thinking, okay, we're going to go planar travel. As a player, what do you do when you're like, oh, hey, we're heading out to the plane of water? Do you just like poop?
Depends on the character I'm playing. If I'm Oscar, I'm charging through the door, even if that door is a big shimmering glowing portal.
Depends what the player or the character or both knows about the planes. Anyway, I mean, I have so many questions about the planes. I genuinely... can I ask first, though, as a DM, let's use the Feywild, for example. What are the rules, if any, or the guidelines to follow for these planes? Because we've already touched on how the Feywild can be different to every DM. And Dan, you kind of said about everything's more exaggerated. Adam, you've talked before about how it's like you turn the contrast up on your TV. For newer DMs trying this for the first time, what are the rules? We're going to the Feywild. What do I need to know?
What are the rules to the Feywild?
Oh my God! All right, so
there aren't any,
but there is though. Because you've already told me what the expectations are.
Okay, so the big thing is that emotion is ramped up to 11.
Okay,
that's number 1. Nature is ramped up to 11 as well. Right, that's number 2. And everything in there is going to be open to interpretation. As far as the creatures inside, you're going to find animals that can speak while other animals can't, with no rhyme or reason behind it. You're going to find a lot of the Fey creatures, whether it's fairies or it's Formians, Formorians, not Formians, they're different. Sorry,
this game.
Formians are ant creatures.
Okay, and what was the other one you said?
Formorians,
which are gigantic, misshapen giant people.
And foremen
are Dan.
Me.
Dan Foreman.
Yeah.
So
skilled tradesman. Yeah.
So anyway, so there's all of these different things that are in there, and they all have their own weird view on how the world works. Hags, for example, are loosely tied to the Feywild, depending on who you talk to, and they've got a weird idea of what's normal and what isn't. They have their own strange, weird logic about them.
Yeah, if you're running a monster in the Feywild, I like to make sure it meets one of the 3 H's. When it comes to the Feywild specifically. Every single creature in the Feywild is one of these 3 things. It's either hungry, it's horny, or it's happy. And it's one of those 3 things. Now, if it's hungry, it will probably want to eat you, and it's going to chase you through the Feywild and try to eat you. These are going to be your Fomorians, your more bestial, exaggerated animals and things like that you have in there.
And if it's horny?
It's going
to chase you through the Feywild to try and eat you.
Yeah, just in a different way. or do things to you, or to be serious, charm you and keep you there forever as a personal sex slave or personal servant of some kind.
Right.
And if it's happy, it's going to mess with you. It's going to play tricks on you. It's going to possibly even give gifts to you that may backfire.
I see what you're saying there, because I've encountered all three of those things in the Feywild. My other question is, because you guys just went through the guidelines of it there, do the planes make sense to the inhabitants? So if I was going to go to the Feywild, I'm like, this does not make sense to me.
Yes,
does it make
absolutely.
Sense to
it makes
people
sense.
there?
It makes sense to the creatures in the Feywild. It does. They operate by their own rules, and they may not understand what the pixie is thinking, but they understand that pixies think this.
Yeah.
They don't know why.
Right.
They don't know the specifics of it, but they understand that, oh, hey, there's a red cap, run. Right? Like we know what we're getting into now. The other thing about creatures in the Feywild, and this is my own personal take on it, is I love to go into the old side of things and really dig into the brownies and the pixies and the fairies, but it's not just that. There are other creatures from old Irish
your satyrs and leprechauns.
Well, satyrs are Greek, but Greek and is another.
No, we're throwing them in there.
Yeah, but Greek is another pantheon that's like tied right into the Feywild. Like
so like the Irish ones, you're talking like will-o-wisps and things like that.
Well, will-o-wisps are undead, so I probably wouldn't use a will-o-wisp there. I would tend to use a will-o-wisp in a haunted swamp as swamp lights to pull someone in. But yeah, things that are illuminated, right? I want to see tons of fairy dragons. I know in 5th Ed they're dragons, but traditionally speaking, they were always, before this, fae and dragons. So for me, they're fae and dragons, right? So, but I want them to ask you a riddle, and if you can't solve it, then I will eat your liver. The rest of you will be fine, though. But I will eat your liver.
That's what I mean. It's how they appreciate things that we would not appreciate in the material plane, and things that are very important to us are suddenly not important to them.
Yeah, they are going to be so entertained hearing about how you sat down and cooked a pot of beans, because it's bizarre to them. And yet they're going to pull out some Dr. Zeus-looking herb and be like, but munch on this, you're going to get stoned for the next 24 hours, but don't worry, it's cool.
Right.
Right? Like their perspective on the world is strange, and everything intelligent in the Feywild bargains.
Yeah.
So be wary of everything in the Feywild. Now, we just spent a whole lot of time talking about the Feywild specifically, but for every single plane out there, it's like that, where they have their own rules, they have their own laws, even if it's a chaotic area, like you know how things act, right? So there is a method to every kind of madness, and every kind of madness is different on each plane.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
To whoever wants it. Is there civilizations, built up civilizations, in every plane, or some of them select few cities?
I would say yes, or even a yes, but to that. In places like the Happy Hunting Grounds, there's going to be civilizations, but they're going to be loose hunting camps.
Right.
In places like
You got a Mount Celestia, though, right? And
Mount Celestia, there is a massive city on the top of the mountain.
There are
where the
7
gods reside.
layers of cities all
Right.
the way up, like
Yeah.
Minas Tirith style.
But you go to the Plane of Fire, there's the City of Brass. You go to, which is established as a city that even mundane humans could go to. It's hot, and you're going to be wearing a tank top, but you could go.
But it's not, it's threatening, like it's intimidating, but I mean, you could just go to it as though it was a regular city and you're okay.
It's going to have trade, it's going to have laws, it's going to have rulers, it's going to have citizens.
But remember that those laws, rulers, citizens, all those things don't necessarily have to be mundane. They will be alien, because these are alien realms.
Right.
Right? So you'll go to the City of Brass and see devils walking down the street. Right? They're still devils. They're still evil creatures. But they're probably not going to attack you on sight, because there are rules within the City of Brass, and devils are lawful creatures, so they're going to maintain those rules. But those rules are going to be something like, oh, if that's a lesser race, I could still enslave you on the spot.
Right.
That's still going to be a thing that
and
can happen
every person on the street knows it.
and
right.
and either accepts it or is just willing to let it happen, because they know if they resist it, then they are breaking the law, and thus they must face the consequences of those laws, which is probably going to be flayed alive or your skin being worn as a suit.
Are some races just naturally more accepted in certain areas than others?
Absolutely.
Elves in the Feywild, tieflings in the City of Brass, or where I might be getting some things mixed up.
Absolutely. Your fiends are going to be lower. Your celestials are going to be upper. right? You're going to have anything that's elemental will be in any one of the 4 inner planes.
Yeah.
There are all sorts of astral beings that exist in the astral sea.
I mean, to travel to, like one of the core races or any of the extended races. Like, if we were to travel to the Feywild, are they going to be more accepting of, say, elves and dwarves? There,
it's up to the DM how you want to play it. We don't have a lot of information in 5th Ed about what the planes are.
Yeah.
There's a little bit, but there's not much.
Right.
Whereas in previous editions, we had books called The Planes. Right, like it was all about that. The other thing that I want to touch on really briefly before we move on to the last thing is the Underdark. Now, the Underdark has its own set of rules, and it's on the prime material plane, and you go literally 3 miles underground, and you are in the Underdark. And the Underdark is a massive world underneath. This is not just tunnels. It is caverns that are so large that you can't see the other side of it. There are underground oceans. This place is huge. And you can't necessarily get from one place in the Underdark to another, right? So there are different sections and portions. There are cities, there are communities. And it is oppressive. And it is dark. And everything down there is about slavery. Every intelligent race is either enslaved, enslaving, or recently free and trying to not be enslaved again, right? So everything down there is about slavery, and everything is I mean, I think Out of the Abyss
spends a lot of time in the Underdark.
Yeah, spends a lot of time in there, and the main plot hook of it is the demon princes are coming through.
I don't know too much, but yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, are the demon princes are coming into the Underdark, and so you start in there, and you have to figure out how to keep them from coming through.
Right.
So considering Out of the Abyss is supposed to be, in my head, about demons. There's very little demons in Out of the Abyss. There are very few. It's all about the Underdark and drow and mind flayers, which I absolutely love, and the Duragar, and there's all these dark creatures, these dark versions of that are evil in and of themselves. You don't want to get caught down in the Underdark because you're not going to be able to find food because there's no regular vegetation. You're licking lichen off of walls and hoping that this mushroom doesn't take you on a wacky trip, right? So that's pretty much what you're dealing with in the Underdark, and it's hard. Like, you get levels of exhaustion just from like running around in there.
Just because it's so oppressive, or kind of dull's probably not the right word. Dull's more, I imagine, Shadowfell.
Yeah. It's literally dark, and it is confusing and disorienting. And if you don't know the way through the Underdark, because you are underground. Like I say, like there's these big areas, these huge caverns with cities. Maybe there's 2 or 3 cities in this one massive cavern that's underground and whatnot. But there are portions where you're just walking through tunnels that you don't know what's on the other side. And you got to hope that you read Duragar. Because if you don't understand their language, you don't understand the signs that they've erected. And if you can't follow the signs,
you're going to get lost underground and have no way of finding your way back.
Yeah, you're going to find a purple dragon. Which, that is the dragon of the Underdark. There's like...
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't make that up.
Really?
Yeah, you laughed because I was being ridiculous.
I was laughing because I thought you made it up, and I was celebrating that you did.
No, so... anyway, guys, I want to talk real quick. Are there any shout-outs you want to throw out? No? Okay, me? All right, cool. So, one of the shout-outs that I want to throw out, and it's a little overdue at this point, I think, we can all agree, is RPG Yogi.
Yes.
RPG
Yogi Bear, Yogles.
Is that what we're doing? Yogles?
I have several names for RPG Yogi.
Now, are we talking just Yogi, or are we talking like all... She's part of Crit Chick, she's part of...
She's attached
Dice
to
Ministry, she's like connected to everything.
She is connected to the D&D Matrix at this point.
She's
just streamlining right in.
Yeah, she was my introduction to the D&D Instagram world.
Yeah.
But she's been fantastic and absolutely wonderful as far as supporting us. And not just the It's a Mimic, but all of us separately as well.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I wanted to give a little shout out and say hi. Everyone should follow her. It's at RPG
_Yogi.
Yeah.
And she does D&D and yoga. Like, it's a legit name. Like, the first time I saw her actually doing like a yogi video, I'm like, oh, okay, that's a legit name, not just because you have an affinity for picnic games.
She has assigned me yoga poses as well. Our conversations have gone outside of D&D, and now I'm like, Yogs, I can't move, help me. So now I have yoga poses, which I didn't do today, but I will do them later.
Uh-oh.
All right.
You're going to get a tersely worded DM pretty quick here.
All right. So the last thing that I want to just jump into really quickly is the unique locations that we ourselves have experienced or witnessed. What are the locations that have stuck out to you, whether it's an environment or, Dan, a plane for you, because you have a lot more experience as a player kind of wandering around. But what are the things that... Well, hold on. We're going to roll initiative for it. Dan's ready to go.
I got so many.
But what are the things that we... When we think of a awesome D&D location, this is the first one that you think of that you yourself have played in.
Okay. Let's roll for it.
Oh, come on.
That's 20.
Really?
I'm going to hold my action.
At least I'm not going
Oh,
last.
of course you are.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of talk on this one so far.
Yeah, honestly I have. But what it comes down to is the fact that I have very, very rarely been a player.
Right.
So I'm not going to sit here and talk about, well, it's time that I made this wicked environment. I'm not going to, toot my own horn on this. So give me a minute to rifle through the old mental Rolodex.
That means you're next, Terry, with your 11.
I have one, but I actually want to hold my action as well.
Seriously, guys?
Because I want to drill you more.
Phrasing?
You. Okay, phrasing. But I want to drill your location because you've had so much more experience than me. I want to pull from what your experience is, and then I'll mention mine afterwards.
Drilling my location is no better than drilling me.
Okay. You're about to be drilled. Go.
Hold up.
Gross.
Before you pull from him. Now go.
Gross. Okay. In terms of a mundane everyday location, and I'm going to give a shout out just real quick to all of my OG nerds who played AD&D and all that other stuff. There is a dual location that I have to mention. The first one is going to be the Moat House outside of Hamlet, just south of Verbabonk in Oerth, which is where the Temple of Elemental Evil sits. There are multiple campaigns that go out to the Temple of Elemental Evil, and each one of them, different modules that go out to the Temple of Elemental Evil. And each one of them starts in the village of Hamlet, and you go to the Moat House outside the village of Hamlet first. It is the site of a classical battle versus a massive blue dragon, which I've had dozens of characters named Oscar die at. My long-term D&D group, though, which has been mostly the same group of guys since, we were in our preteen years, have done this place over and over and over and over and over again. It is our go-to if we're ever feeling stagnant. I love it. It's great. It's got the classical fantasy feel. Everything underneath is a massive obelisk, which has some stuff to it that I won't spoil. But it is also the birthplace of my favorite item ever, tetanus, which we'll get to later. The other one is the Borderlands. You can't go wrong with rampaging orcs and giants in sweeping mountains with tall lonely watchtowers overwatching the entire thing, and a massive orcs versus giants versus gnolls campaign there. It's so the Keep on the Borderlands is a classic module. Temple of Elemental Evil is classic, and they're classic because of these locations.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So would you like to drill him? Should I leave?
I actually, after that, don't have too many questions about those. I know about both of those things, and no, that's awesome.
Yeah. No.
Who goes next?
You.
Yeah.
Me? Mine is a homebrew unique location. Adam, one of yours that I know I've mentioned to you before that I really, really love, and I'll go into the details why. It was the city that you created called Westrel Tops.
Yeah.
Which was on, I don't know how you would describe this rock formation.
It was a spire that came from the bottom of a cavern. So there's a cavern that's 200 feet deep.
You mean a
chasm.
Chasm,
That's 200 feet deep and 400 feet around in the narrowest dimension.
Right.
Or 400 feet across the narrowest dimension. And in the very center of it, there was a spire that came up to ground height.
Yeah.
With a whole bunch of bridges across the spire and the city sitting on top of the spire.
Right, so it's not that it was high, it was deep more than anything, right?
Yeah.
But it was just this fully functioning, full large city on top of this tiny area that was kind of built up, and then there was rope bridges coming out from it in all directions, but not, even in my mind, I still don't do it justice. I'm like, oh, there's a few kind of bridges that go across, that went from miles and miles and miles. And it was just, the way you described it, it made me realize that everything in D&D can be, and really should be, much more exaggerated than what we have in the real world.
Yeah.
What is the point in having a regular rope bridge that goes across maybe 200 feet when there's so much more to the story and so much more excitement and exploration to do? when it goes for how far, 7 miles or something like that.
Yeah, there was one of the most.
And it just made it so much more challenging. And when there was, a story hook that was happening in there with regards to a beholder that was beneath the city and earthquakes and all kinds of different things happening, it just made it so much more interesting. I just really loved that city. It was great.
I'm just really proud of myself right now. Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome. I hope you weren't about to choose your own city of Westrel Tops.
No, I was not. As far as I was going to cheat and just grab one that I wanted to play in, which is the Tomb of Horrors. I have always wanted to go to the Tomb of Horrors because that is environmental. I'm going to drop an F-bomb. Plug your ears. It's environmental fuckery as far as the eye can see.
That's the only one we get for the whole show, right?
Yeah, that's right. You guys are stuck on
Burn it out on episode 5. Thanks.
There we go. So the thing about it is that no matter where you go, no matter what you do, there's traps. And it's not just like, oh, there's spikes that pop up. There's like, if you walk through this mist, you are now the other gender. Like, you swap from male to female, female to male. This is the original one, back before gender was a spectrum. And it was just like male to female, female to male. And it's like worded right in it. You now swap to the other gender.
Yeah.
And there's stuff in it, left, right, and center, that's just like, you now become this, you now become this, you're teleported over here. No one knows you're there. You're just going to die there.
Yep.
Right? And there's just so much crazy funhouse level garbage in there that I would like to play it. But I would like to play it when I have 40 backup characters ready to go because they're just going to die repeatedly.
Oh, yeah. And that was kind of the point behind the Tomb of Horrors. Like,
absolutely.
The Tomb of Annihilation adventure path is an expanded version of and pays homage to the Tomb of Horrors in its original form. The only problem is the Tomb of Annihilation module takes like 7/8 of that module to get to the actual Tomb of Annihilation, which is just a reskin Tomb of Horrors. But once you get inside, you start feeling that, like, you're right. You will walk through a mist and your gender or race or size or whatever will change. A variable on your character sheet, which up until this point has been set in stone, will change. And you'll get teleported around. There's puzzles. Oh my god, the puzzles. I love puzzles. There's so many puzzles. All of the puzzles. Yeah. So I would say Tomb of Annihilation is a good place to go to scratch that 5e itch.
Well, okay. Besides the fact that they already have it in the Tales of the Yawning Portal. It's one of the...
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Tomb of Horrors is in there?
Yeah.
I did not check that, but wow.
I know what I'm doing soon.
So, anyway... I was going to say Tomb of Horrors, and we got totally...
That was not your answer?
That was not my answer.
Oops.
Yeah, my answer is...
It's so good!
You rolled a nat 20, so you get 2.
All right, there we go. So my answer is Dark Sun. I want to do Dark Sun. Yeah, have you never played Dark Sun?
No, I played Dark Sun. I'm just wondering why that's your favorite.
I have not, so I'm also wondering why that's your favorite.
Because it is bleak post-apocalyptic Dungeons and Dragons. It is... The sun is burning out. The world has gone cold and dark. The intelligent races are on the brink of extinction. And it is like high...
That's the one where metal is incredibly rare, so all your weapons are made of bone or...
Yeah, it's high fantasy. And in my head, I always love it because that ends with you guys finding a laboratory full of like sci-fi bullshit. Ooh. And it's fantastic. And now you have laser guns because we've gone through this entire like history of a world. Like, the realm is ending. It's the end of everything. And now you guys have been like, you go from cavemen, essentially, that can wield some magic, to now picking up, like, laser guns and force fields. And it breeds the sci-fi fantasy blend that I like, that I never get to see.
Yeah, I like that. That's also a great way to practice those exploration techniques that we've just been talking about, I guess, with environmental concerns.
Absolutely. But the other thing, too, that I would do in there is I would just cover the landscape in everything undead. You cannot go 50 feet without running into an undead bird, snake, orc.
Dan, you would love that. Skeletons.
Oh god.
Yeah. So there's just ridiculous numbers of undead, zombified. The world's coming to an end. And in my head, the way that I would flavor it myself is death won and killed the sun, and now is bringing everything back undead. And this is how the world ends. You can't stop it. how do you get through this? Maybe you're trying to get to another plane to get out of here. Maybe you are in control. Ultimately, you find out by like level 12, 13, your tier 3 is you're in control of the last bastion of civilization. And you have to get these refugees from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And you're on a huge escort mission to get them to a portal in a mind flayer spaceship that crashed. Like, it's craziness.
I kind of imagine some big caravan type, Resident Evil style.
Yeah, these are all your like Vallejo pictures of like greased up barbarians wielding their bone axes, staring at the dark sun descending behind them. With
but I'm thinking about like the 30s and 40s pulp.
Yeah,
like,
very pulp.
Yeah.
So they've got the bone axe in one hand and the laser gun in the other, and it made sense back then, and we've since separated it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I love Star Wars, which is a space opera. Dark Sun to me is the fantasy opera. Right, that's where you get to do that. You're not doing that in Eberron. You're not doing that in Spelljammer.
No,
right. So
the one Dark Sun campaign I played, our DM, I think our mission was searching out a device that we would shoot into the sun to kickstart it and get civilization, kind of breathe life back, and that's what we were doing. So as a bunch of like, and he told us specifically, none of us were allowed to play any spellcasters.
Oh, brutal!
And none of us were allowed to. Our starting equipment was, I think he gave us 10 gold to buy starting equipment, but no metal. So it would, like, we started off harsh.
Yeah, but you need to in Dark Sun. That's what I like.
Yeah.
I also like the idea of, like, there are 3 gods. All the other gods are dead.
Yeah.
Like destroy, rip the guts out of this entire realm, out of this entire campaign setting. And I like the bleakness of there is no winning. You may end up finding someone. There may be a romantic interest, but it is for warmth against the impending doom. Mm-hmm. It is not a sweeping love story, right? I don't know. I like it bleak. I like it dark. I like it. I hate the phrase grim and gritty, but that's what I want in the D&D campaign.
You're kind of winning me over with it. And if we're lucky, somebody might cry. So
every session, and that's what I'm aiming for. But I want to play
always the goal. Yeah. No, I love it. I think that's great.
All right, so I want to wrap this up then. Is there anything else that you guys want to touch on? Dan, what'd you get out of this session more than anything else? Did you learn anything?
We spent a lot of time on the Feywild, to be honest. And
I think we're using that as an example. But
yeah.
It was
it was good. I'm not complaining. Being able to actually understand kind of motivations behind your planes and being able to understand motivations behind the creatures within the planes that you travel to for your players. To keep it unique, keep it in tone for that plane. Like if there's a axiomatic plane of some form, have those creatures really be paragons of the alignments that they're there for.
Cool. Terry, do you have any final questions?
Yes, for me, was exploring the different ways that we can use the environment and understanding that the environment and exploration and the journey is not an inconvenience to get to your story. It is the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, the last thing that I really want to hit home again is be aware and be conscious of time. Don't be afraid to play with it. And I don't necessarily mean time travel, although do that. But you should always have the concept of what time of day, are the seasons passing. Because on a calendar, I want to know that, hey, we walked into town 2 days before the Harvest Festival. And yes, we've got to go another 15 miles north. But hey, let's go to the Harvest Festival.
Yeah.
Let's have a good time for a half of a session just trying to chase greased up pigs.
Let's
like whatever it is. Right? Yeah. So be aware of the time. And
I have a story about the time I caught a greased up pig. Aha!
Do you really?
I actually do.
Okay. So, but anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid to explore the concept of exploration. I'm just ashamed of myself now.
Was that a joke?
That was an attempt at one.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to It's a Mimic. Check us out online at itsamimic.com or on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Have questions you would like answered by the guys on the show? Send them an email to itsamimic@gmail.com. Tune in every Tuesday for more.